Hi everybody, Bernard here with the latest Citizen vlog, and we're doing the history of Manchester City. This is part 9, and we're actually a little bit different to the others. We're getting to a stage now, excuse me, 1959-60. So getting to a stage now where I have a little, some memorabilia now. We've got programmes and things like this. So what we're going to do, we do this, carry on this history of Manchester City in 5 season intervals as opposed to 10 season intervals. And obviously more significantly, in July 1959, a certain Bernard Deneen, not a footballer, but just this young man here was born. So obviously from 59-60, okay, I wasn't there. I certainly didn't go till 1965-66. But I'll start to have some personal memories as well when we're talking about these football things. So what we're going to do is just 5 season segments as opposed to 10, obviously. And they say the significance to me is I've always tried to collect some older, even ones I haven't got, older programmes from the late 50s and 60s, because obviously that's when I was on the planet, you know, that's when I did exist. So I've always tried to do that. And obviously a lot of my early programmes from the late 60s and 70s I sort of got rid of. I've had to re-get because I used to cut them up and stick them on my bedroom wall, etc, etc. So anyway, part 9, we're going to look at 1959-60 season to the 1963-64 season. Please, if you're new to the Citizen channel, push that subscribe button, push the bell notification so you know when these little vlogs and specials are coming out. Make sure your notifications are set to public. Yeah, so we started in 1959-60, and it was interesting. I mean, City, we'd won the FA Cup in 56, obviously, which we covered on the last thing, but this has been interesting 5 years. A little bit of a doldrums, this one. It's not going to be all any sort of glories in this one, and it sort of starts off with the. We've got the programme from the Luton game on the 16th of September 1959. And this great image, that's the image of Main Road. That's one of my favourite images of Main Road, because that's Main Road as I would have gone in 65. That's how it looked, obviously, with the North Stand obviously standing in an open scoreboard, as we used to call it then. It was called the scoreboard end, it wasn't called the North Stand. And so that's always one of my favourite programme images of this era, if you like. Yeah, and it was interesting because we'd only actually played 7 games at this stage, and we were 6 from bottom, so we weren't doing very, very well. But this sort of negativity sort of carried on throughout this little period. And just to read here, it's the editorial. So the manager didn't always write an editorial. It was just like it would have been a journalist or someone to do with City. And it's just something that's said in here in a matter of values, obviously, in the editorial. I'll just read from the programme. It's a common failing in all of us that we tend to regard the other fellow's possessions as something better than our own. The gleaming article in the shop window always seems to lose a little of its lustre the moment we buy it. So it is in football. The club supporter will see the faults in his own side far more readily than those in the opposition, and for that reason is inclined to underrate the value of his own team and overrate their rivals. This attitude of supporters is in many respects a good thing, in that it reflects that keen interest which is vital to the well-being of any club. Yet it can often lead to a distorted sense of values and frequently unfair criticism. Not without some justification, there has been considerable criticism of the City team this year, and if the out-and-out pessimists are to believe, relegation is a foregone conclusion, only 35 matches away. Yeah, and he just goes on with it, and it is that sort of air of and as we go through this, you might hear this despondency again, and it was that sort of air around the club. And I think because United were being so successful, even before the tragedy of Munich, they'd sort of got the upper hand on City with crowds, etc, etc. Some of it, a lot of City's own fault, to be honest with you. And obviously this was to carry on, obviously, at this stage. And you'll see in programmes where, you know, other teams are commenting now of the difference between City and United as far as how people perceive them, etc. And interesting enough, so I just thought I'd touch on that and show you this sort of attitude that was there certainly in the 59-60 and obviously up till certainly the late 60s. And interestingly enough, in this programme, there's a little message at the bottom. Alan Oakes, young wing half who joined the ground staff last year, has now signed professional for the club. Alan, who was born at Winsford, played for Mid Cheshire Boys, captained the Cheshire Boys team and had trials for the England schoolboy side.
So that's just a little note of a certain Mr. Alan Oakes that obviously we all got to know, didn't we? That was the sort of team at the time, at this sort of time. You've got there Troutman, Levers, Kerr, Cheatham, McTavish, Barnes, Barlow, Hannah, McAdams, Hayes and Coleridge. So it's like a bit of a mishmash. It was a bit of a mishmash. There was still some of the old guys there who've been with us a while, but it sort of started to age a little bit, and we weren't quite getting the great players that we perhaps once had. Our first win that season actually was a 3-0 win against United, which, you know, had become a little bit rarer in those days. In October we beat United 3-0, and we had a guy called Bill McAdams who was our prolific goal scorer, but he was getting a lot of injuries, so he never really got a good run of games. On the 14th of November that season, the 59-60 season, we saw the Alan Oakes debut, and he obviously had his debut and unfortunately gave a poor penalty away as well, which was quite unusual. He was so thankful. Actually, Troutman actually saved the penalty, which he was very good at saving penalties, as you probably know if you watch these vlogs or you've read up on City. And he did comment on the fact, Alan Oakes, that he did actually still, at the time when he had his debut, was still cleaning Bert's boots, so he gave him an extra clean, etc. at the time for pulling him out of the mire. I got a great picture actually of that season. We got the Law debut because Law had joined us, signed for £55,000. And Arsenal, it was hinted at going to Arsenal, but they either wouldn't or couldn't pay the £55,000, which was quite an enormous fee at the time. And we've got an image in the 125 magazine, the City's 125 magazine. A great image of Dennis Law alongside Ken Barnes, and also a picture of Dennis Law there, obviously. Another picture, but there's Dennis Law and Ken Barnes together. Yeah, so he made his debut on the 19th of March 1960 in a 4-3 defeat at Leeds, and Dennis Law did actually score in that 4-3 defeat, so he did actually score even though we did get beaten that game. It wasn't a great season. We finished 15th, so it wasn't all despondency. I mean, obviously we finished to a similar position we were after 7 games, so even though we had 35 games left, we didn't improve too much. But but again, in the press and journalists and fans, City were considered to be a tired, ordinary side at this stage. Nothing special at all. In the FA Cup, we lost to Southampton 5-1 at home to Southampton 5-1. The League Cup, we'll talk about that very soon, because that's suddenly going to appear and start appearing in our summaries of the season, etc. And the biggest crowd, Burnley won the league that season, so obviously one of our last games was the biggest crowd, 65,981. So City get beat by Burnley, obviously, which more or less helped Burnley win the title that season. And I think City had been in a game against Tottenham Hotspur previously at White Hart Lane, which had been covered in a lot of controversy about that game as well, where we actually ended up beating Tottenham, but there was a lot of controversy about goals being ruled off and things, and the referee blowing his whistle literally split seconds before a goal for Tottenham went in and things like this. So a bit despondent, the fact we then apparently rolled over and got beat by Burnley. So there was a bit of despondency with Tottenham. What a shame. That's perhaps why perhaps we don't get on with them too well now, or it's nothing to do with the 1981. It's obviously to do with that. So yeah, on to the 60-61 season. We've got a great programme here from Bolton Wanderers there, 1960-61, Saturday, November the 5th. Fretham's for that, 1.5 new P that would be, Fretham's. So we got the game against Bolton. And again, if you look at the league tables, we're not doing too bad. We played 14 in this season, so a little bit better. We're up in 6th position this season, so we're doing better. Bolton are struggling a little bit. I mean, Bolton is a time when Bolton was beginning to sort of struggle a little bit on it, and then the guys even put the scores on the back there, and obviously we lost that one 3-1, and obviously look who scored the City goal. Dennis Law again scored City's goal, so so a 3-1 win at Bolton. Francis Lee, there you go, is he on that? There you go, Mr. Lee played for Bolton. that game. He actually got booked and he scored a goal, so that was sort of quite typical of Francis Lee, wasn't it, over there? See his name in the corner there. So obviously City are 6th and Bolton are 21st, so, and they still beat us, so that just about sums it up, doesn't it? That just about sums City up really, that they beat us. Yeah, so we started quite well, but then a mid-season slump left the City actually joint bottom. So we'd gone from 6th to joint bottom by Christmas time. It wasn't very good. So by the end of March, we were actually joint bottom, because we were up top half of the table by Christmas, and then by the end of March we were joint bottom. And strangely enough, by April we did have a little bit of a turnaround, and a 4-1 win over Joe Mercer's Aston Villa at Main Road guaranteed our survival. I think we'd actually lost at Aston Villa 5-1 previously, and we beat Joe Mercer's Aston Villa at Main Road 4-1. And we actually ended up finished 13th, so it wasn't too bad. We'd started well, absolutely plummeted, and then obviously ended up finishing 13th. The biggest crowd, not great again. The biggest crowd was against United, which tended to be the case in those days, apart from the season before, obviously, where it was Burnley, because they were fighting for the championship. 50,479, so not the massive biggest of crowds, with a 3-1 loss to United, unfortunately. A new competition called the League Cup appeared, 60-61. We beat Stockport in the very first game. That was our very first game in the League Cup, a 3-0 home win against Stockport, but we did lose the next round against Portsmouth 2-0. And we had the very famous FA Cup 4th round. We're not going into great detail of this, where we were actually winning 6-2 with Mr. Law scoring 6 goals. Obviously, by the 70th minute, the game had to be abandoned because of the weather. And of course, as you know, we did lose the replay 3-1, Mr. Law scoring again. And we got some programme highlights from that season. So, Saturday 29th of October, Manchester City against Blackburn Rovers. So this was the editorial again. The most encouraging feature of the season so far has not only been the improved results of the team, but the attractive football the side has played in all circumstances. Ken Barnes and the boys have never for a moment changed either their method, speed or plan of play, whatever the circumstances of the game. So that was when we got to a great start, but it wasn't to last, was it? It was to fail miserably. Yeah, the Villa game I mentioned with Joe Mercer, that was obviously the programme for Aston Villa. There's no images of Joe Mercer in it, unfortunately, to look at. But I think we lost this one. We lost this game 5-1, as I say. We did get the revenge. But look at that. Look at this. That's another great image of the stadium. And again, that was similar. It's quite a little bit similar to, obviously, it's covered. That's the Holt end, isn't it? That was covered the first time I ever went. But I did stand in it was an open end this end the first time I went to Aston Villa. So, but I love those images, and it's a drawn one, and I like it. Not like me, is it, with drawings? But no, I do like that. So, yeah, we did get our revenge over Villa. The United game. We lost 5-1 at Old Trafford, but it actually flashes back to the derby at Main Road that was played on the August the 29th. It's actually abandoned because of poor weather. We were dropping down the table as a forward, obviously, by Matt Busby. So this was the time, obviously, by this Saturday the 31st of December. This is where all of a sudden things started to go a little bit to pot. And if you look at the team, City team: Troutman, Sear, Betts, Shawcross, Plenderleaf, Barnes, Wagstaff, Law, Baker, Hannah and Barlow. So that was the City team. But obviously that defeat, and obviously we did start to plummet down the league table, unfortunately. I've got a programme of Arsenal away. We were 3-0 down with this one. Again, a great image. I mean, they love putting images of the grounds on the... Look at that, fantastic. Absolutely brilliant image. Again, that's how it was, more or less, I think, when I went to Arsenal at Highbury. Superb images. And yeah, we were actually losing 3-0. We pulled it back to 3-3, but we actually lost it. A cracking game. We actually lost the game 5-4. So, I mean, you've got the some famous names on the Arsenal team there as well. With actually Charles at centre-half. Remember Charles at centre-half? You've got Newcastle at home. Familiar City thing. And obviously train travel, FA Cup 4th round. That was obviously the famous 4th round, the famous 6-2. And it would have cost you 30 shilling to go from Manchester Central to Luton Town. So that was £1.50. And to go to Cardiff City in the for a league game would have cost you 32 shillings. So that would be £1.60. So if you wanted to go to Cardiff on the last programme, West Bromwich Albion, 11th of February 1961, and there's a little complaints in here about the fact that the game was at 6-2. The game had to be replayed, so it's similar to this COVID thing, isn't it? At the end of the day, it's where, you know, we were so vastly in front, we should have been awarded the game. There's a little bit of fallout in the editorial saying the rules should be changed because you know, to be 6-2 up in 70 minutes and then obviously have to replay the game is sort of, you know, ridiculous. So quite interesting there on that. So that sort of took us through the 1960-61 season. 1961-62. Got a squad image here of the squad in 1961-62. Great image of the squad with the manager George Powell with the scoreboard in the background. Absolutely fantastic. You can pause that and have a look at the team names and the players there. See if you can recognise any of those players. Bit devastating that season though, where Ken Barnes actually left City to become player manager of Wrexham, and also we lost Dennis Law, who obviously had been prolific, who actually signed for Torino for £125,000, and it was about the money. Italy were coming looking. I think they took the Arsenal player we looked at before, didn't he, Charles, for big money, and obviously with the maximum for English players was £20 per week, so that's why they were all going over to Italy. So unfortunately, we lost Mr. Law to Torino, but obviously that didn't last long either, did it? So that didn't turn out how we expected. Peter Dobin and Bobby Kennedy signed for City. And Bobby Kennedy scored a 3-1 win quite quickly against Leicester City, against the fantastic Mr. Gordon Banks, who was playing for Leicester City at the time. But the players believe, obviously, with Dennis Law going, Ken Barnes going, the players, again, it harps back to the editorial, doesn't it? About the players lacking ambition. And again, against Bolton Wanderers, this is the 16th of September, 1961, a match against Bolton Wanderers. There's sour grapes, and again it's obviously there's that underlying thing, but the editorials again having a dig at never can have had team have started the season with such a degree of success until I've been so fiercely criticised as Manchester City. So again, I mean, look, they were second in the league to Burnley, and yet they were getting criticism. But say the players were disgruntled, so it wasn't just outside of City was getting getting down. It was the players as well, because of what I've just mentioned there. So again, it was that air of despondency, wasn't it? But City did struggle that season, though they were, as you can see, they were second there. They started to struggle. We actually had a 17-year-old called Neil Young, who actually I think got an image in the programme, actually in the Manchester City programme. A great image of young Neil Young there. Young Neil Young. He scored 10 goals in 24 games, but we were struggling, even though players like Neil Young were actually doing it for us. We were actually, from becoming February 61, we're actually threats of relegation. We started to look a bit panicky. And we actually had appearances from people like John Benson, Paul Ameson. Harry Dowd appeared twice. Troutman was still the goalkeeper. We had Harry Dowd in twice, and unfortunately, we lost 4-1 and 6-3 where Harry Dowd was in net. So things we were struggling. And then we had another young lad who started for us. And this is it. You had older players who were coming towards the end of the careers, and we had these young players being blooded, and it was sort of unsettling the team. On the 11th of April 1962, you got a great image of this young man here. This gentleman made his debut. Glyn Pardoe made his debut at number 9, which I've covered on other vlogs and other things. But look, that's a fantastic image of Glyn Pardoe having a brew there. But so they were throwing these young players in. So fortunately, the relegation threat from up to February disappeared. We actually finished 12th. We actually went on to finish 12th. And the Bolton Wanderers, look at the 3rd of February 1962. 2-0 win for City there, but the actual table, so this was February, look where we were in the league. 3 from the bottom, so in February. So we were struggling, but we had ended up having a bit of a mini, obviously the young Limpardos, etc. Obviously we ended up, and obviously Bert Troutman, as he saved many points for us. He ended up finishing 12th, so we were quite a respectable 12th, to be honest with you. In the League Cup, we lost first round to Ipswich 4-2. In the FA Cup, we lost in the fourth round to Everton. Crowd-wise, again, was the biggest crowd was against United at Main Road again, 49,959 in another 0-2 a 2-0 loss, unfortunately. A couple of programmes to look at. You've got the Everton one, and obviously City against Everton. Still the same picture. And something called Manky Poll. I mean, you could MCFC ground development and obviously weekly football competition. So we had Manky Poll. I have no idea what's that. That's obviously the forerunner to things like City Bingo and things like that. And there's a great programme from Sheffield United. Again, the ground where it used to be a cricket ground. I mean, when I first went to Sheffield United, it used to be a cricket ground. And a little piece on City. Just this is about like the history thing. This is interesting enough. It says in there, Manchester City. It's 6 years since Manchester City were last at Bramall Lane, and we are glad to have the opportunity of seeing them here again. They may not figure in the limelight so consistently as their neighbours at Old Trafford. Nevertheless, the City are a grand club and have an extraordinary career. They have had great triumphs and great falls. So, I mean, this is sort of more or less pointing out that history isn't trophies, isn't, you know, because United were beginning to win league titles and stuff by then. It isn't to do with that. It's all the things that have happened in the past. So, and they were sort of hinted at in this Sheffield United programme. That was from the 11th of November 1961. That new razor. You sell them in packs now, don't you? You can get mail order to get new razors. So yeah, that was season 61-62. So we lead to season 62-63, and very early doors the writing was on the wall how this season was going to go. We lost 8-1 away at Wolves in our very first game, and even our one goal was scored by Wolverhampton. This was all sort of tempered a little bit and inspired because we went to Old Trafford and won 3-2, which was sort of rare, becoming a rare thing, which lifted the spirits. And guess who scored the United goals? Yes, a certain Dennis Law had come back from his Italian jaunts and signed back for United. From the 15th of December, here's a good start, to the 9th of March, City went unbeaten. From the 15th of December to the 9th of March. Unfortunately, we'd only played 3 games because it was the winter of the big freeze. So we went unbeaten in 3. I think we drew 2 and lost 1. Drew 2 and won 1. So we went. So it sounds good, but by April, City were 21st, so next to bottom on 21 points by 30 games. Harry Dowd. I've got an image. You got a picture of him there from the programme. Great Harry Dowd had taken over now from Troutman. Troutman past his peak. Harry Dowd, you said he only had a couple of games the season before and let 10 goals in. Harry Dowd had actually taken over from Bert Troutman, but I mean, I'm not going to blame it all on Harry Dowd, obviously. But it's by December there's a programme against Arsenal. 1st of December. So yeah, I'm not where we're in the league. So as you see from sort of quite way down there, look. So that was before we hit 21st spot in April, but we were struggling even early doors. And this programme was a great image of the Arsenal manager, Mr. Billy Wright. You probably know another legend, Billy Wright. There was the Arsenal manager in that. Yeah, so it came our last home game. United were just above us. And our last home game was against United. It was a nasty affair. It was a bit. I believe a City player was sparked out in the tunnel by a United player, and it obviously calmed down a little bit the second half after that. But United drew at Main Road, which virtually guaranteed their safety, but obviously really put us on the brink of relegation again. And it would have took a little minor miracle, unfortunately, a 6-1 defeat at West Ham on the final day. Wasn't going to help, and obviously because of the poor season, how done the crowds were terrible. The average crowd, if you think our average crowd, sometimes were up there with the best, weren't they? Many years back. Now they got down. Our average crowd was 24,567 for that season. So to get relegated again, 62, 63. The writing was sort of back on the wall when we first started this though, wasn't it? That despondency was there, that negativity was there. In the League Cup, we actually got to the quarter-final this season, so even though we got relegated, we actually got to a quarter-final, but we lost 6-0 to Birmingham City, who went on to win it that season. And even the FA Cup, even though we weren't great in the league, we managed to get to the 5th round, which was a defeat at Norwich City. Just got a couple of programmes from that season to look at. We got Ipswich Town, September 1962, so that was quite early doors. And it's I pulled that one out because they were managed by a certain Sir Alf Ramsey, Ipswich Town. Thought you might like the look of that. And obviously Ipswich Town has celebrated being league champions in 61, 62, so that's just their little one. See how big, how small they are, their little programme. They did that for a few years. I got 1 or 2 of these about it. And Secretary Manager's notes, Manchester City, the only side to complete a league double over us last season. So obviously in the previous season, 61, 62, where they won the league, City actually did the double over even though they'd won the league. So that's that was interesting. Yeah, so the highest attendance, again, even though our average was 24,000, I mean, the highest was actually 52,400. Sorry, the highest crowd we got was 52,424 at 1-1 against United. So, but the crowds are down to 24. Relegation beckoned, which took us to the last season we're going to look at today, which obviously put us back in the 2nd division, didn't it? Back to Division 2, and of course, well, eventually it did have to happen, didn't it? We lost the manager. Les McDowell was parted the ways after what, 1950 to 1963. Mr. Les McDowell was in charge, so he eventually saw, you know, it's very rare to sack managers in those days. They left for other reasons, obviously just bad results. You always thought he could do better, sort of thing. His win percentage was just 37% of win percentage. His total record in charge of City was 592 games, won 220, drawn 127, lost 245, scored 1,049 goals, but had 1,134 against us, so we conceded almost 100 goals more in the 13 seasons Les McDowell was in charge. Plenty of goals, plenty of games. We did manage 1 trophy though, which was the FA Cup, but the highest position Les McDowell managed to get us was 4th place, so he had to go, didn't he? So he did go. And of course, Mr. George Poyser took over. Obviously, we won't go into who took over from George Poyser just yet, but he was to be our next manager. Got a picture, and so a lot of the players said they never saw him with a pipe out of his mouth. So there's a picture of Mr. George Poyser with his pipe there. So he was become our next manager, and he was the assistant to McDowell. So he the club thought it best just to promote from internally, obviously. Peter Dobin jumped ship. He legged it after getting relegated. He went to Stoke City. Again, the fans weren't overly impressed. We signed a player called Derek Kevin, and he's doing his signing on bit there. But the opening game back in the 2nd division was a 2-0 defeat by Portsmouth. So the fans were up in arms already, and a gentleman called Ron Saunders scored one of the Portsmouth goals in that. Dave Wagstaff, I think I may have a picture of Dave Wagstaff somewhere. Actually, another City player, popular City player, David Wagstaff. There's an image of him there, David Wagstaff. He moved on Boxing Day. He didn't want to. He turned up. He was told he was going, and it was a bit like Gary Owen, wasn't it? That I talked about in a recent vlog. He didn't know. He turned up, and he was obviously told he was being transferred, and he was absolutely devastated. And most City fans were. And he went to Wolves and did very well at Wolves. The highlights of the pretty miserable season with January and February was a 1-1 draw at Bury. Because a certain Mr. Colin Bell scored for Bury, so that was one of the good things. But interestingly enough, the 1-1 draw at Bury, Harry Dowd scored City's equaliser. The goalkeeper, yes, he broke his finger, so he moved up front, and one of the players went in goal, and he actually thought the highlight of the season for us that season. He moved to number 9, he moved up front to number 9 and scored the equalising goal for City. So there you go. That's not too bad, is it? We also had Alan Ogley fighting for the keeper, and we also had Troutman was there. Troutman was still fighting to be the keeper. So you had sort of Alan Ogley, Harry Dowd, and Frank Troutman, Bert Troutman going for the keeper spot. So in 63, 64. But by the end of 1964, Mr. Troutman decided to call it a day, and we had the testimonial for Bert Troutman. I think I've covered that and shown that in another thing. 47,901 people turned up for Bert Troutman's testimonial. We've got a little image of him there being mobbed by the crowd. Fantastic. And I've got another image of Bert, just an image of him stood, looking a bit tired, holding his leg. Probably getting towards the end of his career there. So, so sadly, that crowd, that 47,901, I mean, actually thousands were locked out. I don't know why we knew how much our main road could hold, but obviously they panicked a bit and locked out many, so a lot of people missed out on that. So we had a poor January, February, which didn't help and put pay to any thoughts of promotion, but we did manage to finish 6th, which wasn't too bad. We had a great run in the League Cup semi-final as well, so we didn't go all the way, but we got to the semi-final. And actually lost 2-1 on aggregate, and that was during January and February when we were having a bad run. So that was unfortunate. FA Cup, we got to the 4th round and a 2-1 loss at Swindon. I mean, just some images from that. Interestingly enough, I got a reserve thing from Saturday, August 31st, 1963, and you got reserves here with Alan Ogley, Kennedy, Pardoe up front. So I mean, this is the reserve sheet, and there was always one sheet. It was an A4 sheet when I was going to watch City reserves. But interesting enough, he's put the crowd on. Look at the crowd for a reserve match. 1,863. That's not me, whoever owned this. 1,863. It's not a bad crowd for a reserve game, was it? So we've got programme against Leeds, 7th September 1963. Again, we cover the stand. And we can see that Derek Kevin that we showed earlier. We've got an image of him scoring a goal there. Great. It's starting to put some images in these programmes now, which are fantastic. So that was last Saturday's match. There's 2 goals crossed by David Wagstaff. So that was before Wagstaff had left us. And of course, the manager of Leeds United, a certain Don Revie, who obviously had links, and we've talked about for City, haven't we? So there you go. Don Revie was Leeds manager at the time. Got an Orient programme from 7th of December 1963. And obviously the main charity, and they did this a lot, City for collections for charities, was obviously called the Spastics. I mean, it wouldn't be called Spastics now, wouldn't it? But they used to be the main charity that most clubs actually contributed to and gave to. And 11th of January 1964 from the same season. So we weren't having a great time in January. Got a Leeds United programme there from that season. And it's just the Leeds team took my eye. If you just have a quick look at that Leeds team there, I'll just mention some names to you on that Leeds team. You've got Gary Sprake, Paul Reaney, Paul Madeley, Billy Bremner, Johnny Giles, Norman Hunter. What a superb team. I mean, that was 1964, so they would come to, very young at that stage. They would come to fruition. That would come to help Leeds, obviously, in the late 60s, wouldn't it? Biggest attendance again. We're in the 2nd division. We had no United to play, did we? So we couldn't get 50-odd thousand against United. So our biggest attendance, sadly, was in a 3-0 defeat to Sunderland at Main Road with 31,136. So there we go. We finished with the 63-64 season. Not the greatest 5 seasons in Manchester City history. And 1963-64, so I'm getting 4 or 5 years old. I must be mithering my dad now. Take me to watch football, Dad. He's probably saying, yeah, I'll take you to Old Trafford. Because my big brother was a United fan. So I don't think my dad ever took him to United, but he was a United fan. Probably because my dad had a leaning towards City and they didn't get on so well. So, yeah. So I don't know what. Was I mithering to go and watch City? I just was probably mithering to go and watch football. Based on what we've seen there, I wouldn't have been mithering to go and watch City, would I? Which, there you go, these glory hunters. Anyway, next we'll go on to 1964-65, the season before I started going. We'll be talking potential mergers, City and United, a new management team, of course. Some legends joined the club. Wembley's on the horizon, and obviously titles in Europe are always on the horizon as well. In the next 5-year session we're going to look at, and we're getting to those days, aren't we? That I remember. I get into those days where I was there. Anyway, thanks for watching. Long one today. Sorry about that, but this is how it's going to be now. With got a lot of things to look through, and so hopefully that's okay, and you can perhaps watch it in a couple of parts if it gets too much. But it flew by. It just flew by for me anyway. Hope you enjoyed that. Please let me know in the comments what any specific memories you have. Follow me on Twitter at nostalgia_movie or at Charles Deneen. Deneen spelled DINNN. I'm on Facebook at Burn Deneen with links to moviegamenostalgia.com, my little website for old and rare DVDs, movie posters from the 1990s and 2000s, and board games as well. So if you can spend any time having a look on moviegamenostalgia.com, it'd be very much appreciated. Anyway, thanks for joining me for this little look through Manchester City history. So we'll be back for part 10. So please, hopefully you'll join me for that, and watch any of the other City vlogs, past and present, that I've done. Cities and past and present. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'm going to do the rest of the day. Have a great one. Look after yourselves, look after your friends, look after your families. More importantly, let's look after each other. And hopefully I'll see you all again very, very soon. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.